and welcome everyone to part 5 of In My Shadow, the Atsumu angst series. It's getting tense here, and I'm all here for it. I hope you are too. Enjoy! The next morning, they didn't talk about last night's instance. Atsumu had gone quiet and avoided them to the best of his abilities. He didn't want to see the moment in their eyes when they inevitably would have to realize he was going crazy. He didn't want to see the concern and perhaps even pity. Silently, he got ready for the game. He doubted he would be of any use today, but ultimately he had no choice but to go through with it. Same with his plan, although it seemed silly now. He'd be waiting for no one because there was no one. But at the same time, the blonde knew that if he didn't confirm it, he would be driving himself into madness. Atsumu? I'm fine. I can play, don't worry. It was probably the least convincing he ever sounded. Kira sighed. After the game, you promised we could talk after the game. At this point, he was desperately clinging to his last pieces of hope, no matter how horrific the implications might be. He needed nothing more than to be able to trust his senses again. Losing that had been a horror he previously deemed impossible. Surely someone potentially wanting to kill him or worse would be the more alarming objective, but here he was, wishing it to be true in exchange for his sanity. Okay. Don't forget your phone, just so we can reach you. He nodded and rushed back upstairs to quickly grab it from the guest room. He distinctly remembered putting it on the nightstand to charge and not taking it with him when he panicked in the morning after. However, when he entered the room now, it was gone. And suddenly, a wave of calm washed over him, silencing and drowning out the doubt in his mind that he must have forgotten that he took it. Maybe it was delusion. Maybe he wished for an external cause too desperately, but he was certain that it had to be here. He knew he left it here. This was one coincidence too many. Someone had been here that night and left the window open. Someone had been here yesterday and somehow locked the door behind them. They had approached Atsumu and they had taken his phone. Cold shivers haunted down his spine, but they mixed with a thrilling satisfaction. He wasn't insane. Someone was making him feel this way. At once his plan took shape in his head, and he closed the door with determination. Sorry, I must have forgot my phone at Samu's, but I'll stay close, I promise. He gave Kida a small smile to hide the lie behind and shouldered his back. At the door, Sakusa was already waiting for him, the same concern coining his expression. Eren and Kida would meet them later to cheer them on during the game. Step 1. Win the match and pretend all is fine. All things considered, his lack of sleep and proper nutrition the last week, and the constant paranoia, things went surprisingly well. The rest he had gotten at Samu's must have really helped. That and finally having a clear vision again. He knew what to do next. During the game, he only had to be swapped out twice, and against all odds, they could secure victory. He let out a breath of relief and even let himself celebrate with the others as he usually would. The tension at his core remained, but he knew that patience was key. He grinned brightly as Eren and Kida came down to them from the stands and presented them proudly to the reporters asking for statements. From the side, he could see Sakusa glancing at him a little uncertainly, confused by his sudden mood change. Though he seemed to accept it as the effect volleyball and a successful game had on the blonde, and only intervened when the reporters got a little too personal with their questions about his performance today. He visibly didn't want Atsumu's happiness to be overshadowed by that, and dragged him out to the rest of the team. It was time for celebrations. Atsumu felt a little bad, because that too was part of the plan. They had to believe his good mood was sincere and tied to the celebration, so that they'd wait with their questions until after the celebration was over. At the restaurant, they made Asumu along with Suna and Komori as well, and for a moment he thought he wouldn't escape his brother when Bokuto dragged him away for drinks, and he gladly accepted. They laughed. Bokuto and Hinata were as loud as always, and trying to hold up a conversation became close to impossible. The owners of the restaurant were used to that by now, and prepared whenever the energetic volleyball team had a game. Here they were quite welcome customers. This time, Atsumu subtly held back with the drinks though. He had one more thing to do. As he observed the time go by and engaged lively in conversation with the less vigilant members of the team to avoid getting interrogated on the past week, he waited. It happened a couple of hours in. He almost missed it over the noise, but he had become so accustomed to the pattern that it echoed above it, even now, when he heard the steps in passing. With a smile, he excused himself and walked over to his brother, currently talking with Kida and nursing a beer. He grinned at the silver-haired, making sure to appear tipsy but not drunk, and very happy and relaxed. Hey, Samu, can I borrow your phone? I forgot mine. What for? I want to call Ma and tell her about our victory. That was a tradition that had to wait today. Asumu rolled his eyes but handed over his phone, and Atsumu accepted it gladly, his heart suddenly picking up speed. It would end today. As soon as he stepped outside, cold air embraced him, and he breathed in deeply to clear his head. He inspected the street to both sides and found it mostly empty except for some others coming out to smoke or call someone like him. He didn't join them, however. Instead, he walked with quick steps in the opposite direction. After a while, the footsteps reappeared, and when he was certain they were far enough to come out when asked, now that they were alone, he stopped and reached for the phone. He went through Samu's contacts, ignoring the one of the mother, and instead chose his own. There was a heartbeat of silence in which all the doubt came back, crashing down on him with unyielding force, but then the silence broke. The ringtone of his own phone cut through it. He pressed record as the call was connected. Relief flooded his system, and a single tear slipped that he quickly wiped away. He wasn't crazy. Determination filled his mind, and a new tension built up in his muscles. He was angry. Someone did this to him. When he turned around this time, he wasn't met with nothing. At the end of the alley appeared a silhouette. The same one from last night, though much less shrouded in the terrors his nightmare-riddled brain came up with. And then she put the phone up to her face, the display illuminating her features, and Atsumu realized he had made a huge mistake. Having the person behind everything revealed didn't take away from the fear his body had been trained to associate with her, and he froze. He recognized her. She had snuck in after a game to get an autograph, and he didn't make the connection at the time, but she was the girl who handed him back his phone. You're the girl from the train. You remember me? How nice. She was still approaching slowly until she came to a stop about 3 meters before him, his phone still held slightly elevated next to her face. She smiled, sickly sweet. I had to make sure I grabbed the right phone after all. I considered taking it back then, but I didn't want to risk rushing things. This is worth waiting for, don't you think? She seemed genuinely excited, and despite being a head smaller than Atsumu, he didn't feel safe at all. All his instincts told him to run. Although, I prefer you don't call me girl. I'm 24, you know? He gulped. She took half a step forward and he flinched back. A frown set in her brows and he had the distinct impression he should avoid setting her off. What should I call you then? You can just call me Hado-chan. How does that sound? Isn't that a little personal? Another step. I think it's perfect. We're so close already, aren't we? Another step. You understood immediately what I meant by taking your phone, and you have even invited me to this small date. Isn't it wonderful? His heart practically jumped out of his chest with how close she was. He had underestimated the situation. He was too focused on proving that he wasn't insane, and now he was at the mercy of someone who was. I knew from the moment I saw how he treated you that you shouldn't be with a cold-hearted prick like Sakusa. He doesn't deserve you. Anger boiled up inside him again, but it was dwarfed by the panic rising up inside him as he recognized the metal glint in her other hand as a blade. Well, I'm with you now, ain't I? So there's no reason to worry about him anymore, right? He tried to tap into the charm that earned him his playboy image to begin with, but he knew it was shaky and not as convincing as he wished. She sighed, and when their eyes met again, her steel blue ones seemed to glow, burning him with an intensity that shouldn't be possible. She lowered the phone and dropped it into her pocket. Don't treat me like a fool, Mia Atsumu. You might think me naive, but we both know things like this take time. Her voice was icy, though her lips twisted into a smile again toward the end, and suddenly all those horrible nights and paranoia-filled days came crashing back. Bile rose within his throat, and hatred and fear fought for dominance within his mind. That's why you'll be coming with me. She giggled. It was one syllable, and he couldn't even pronounce it before the silver glint appeared right before his eyes. Her weapon of choice was a cutter. The blade was extended and unbroken, clean as though it had never been used before. Silly me. I'm sorry if that sounded like a question. The piercing blue eyes fixed on his again, and he could feel tears slipping down his cheeks as he saw the determination in them. This woman wouldn't hesitate to cut him if he made so much as a wrong step. He had miscalculated. She was right. She was naive. Although misguided, her intellect was sharp, and her obsession didn't blind her judgment on Atsumu's poor attempts of seduction. Try to smile, darling. We don't want any bystanders to get the wrong idea. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I have honestly nothing to say to my defense for this cliffhanger. But like the video and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on the next part. And complain about me in the comments. Though, to my defense on the spooky factor, it is spooky season, and this is the Halloween special, I decided now. So I hope you like that aspect. A special thanks goes out, as always, to my nerdy neckos. If you also want to become a nerdy necko, check out the join button under the video. It would help me so much. Here are my other social media. In the name of Halloween, the next part should be out tomorrow. At least I hope so. I have a lot on my plate right now. And now I hope you have a wonderful and amazing day, and check out these videos. They are awesome.
Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be